You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Today's topic, which is all about the thyroid, one of the top questions that we get in our practice surrounds hormones, surrounds metabolism, and definitely focuses on the thyroid. So no doubt about it, this is an important topic, one that I do hope that you're able to really absorb today. And then I have many other shows on the thyroid that I'll be able to point you back to as well. But today's topic is very specific. I want to share with you not necessarily how the thyroid functions. I've gone over that on previous shows, but I want to go over about 10 points that your doctor doesn't know about your thyroid. Now, I say that in a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek way. And the reason is this, is that obviously, and I do mean this, I really do, that the majority of the specialists, so endocrinologists, hormone specialists, and PCP, primary care physicians out there, are very brilliant. I mean, it's very difficult to become a medical doctor without being quite smart. So when I say that your doctor doesn't know this, I mean that this is not something they use in their practice. It's not something they've really been taught. And if they were taught it, it has nothing to do with the way that they're able to help you, which is simply more pharmaceutical based. But the problem is this. We see so many people in our practice that have been prescribed medication for either hyperthyroid, which is much less, or hypothyroid, which is lower levels of thyroid. Now, the problem is this. Oftentimes, they're either over-medicated or under-medicated, and then what in turn happens is they never work on the underlying root causes, especially if you have higher levels of antibodies, TPO antibodies. Taking the medication is not going to do anything for that, because the higher antibodies come from an autoimmune-based reaction, which has to do with many deficiencies and toxicities in the body, some of which I absolutely will cover today. So this is probably going to be a two-part show. Today I'm going to go over about 10 points, and then I also want to go over they're much more rare, but it can explain why you're dealing with thyroid issues as well. So we'll go over that on a future show. Today, what I want to do is I want to dive right into these 10 points because this is super important. I mean, keep in mind, why do a show, dedicated to thyroid? Well, there's so many people walking around with undiagnosed hypothyroidism. That means low thyroid. So they have the symptoms. They have the cold hands, the cold feet, the slower speech. They have the brain fog. They've got the lower mood, sometimes poor sleep quality, dry skin, thinning of the hair, thinning of the eyebrows, thinning of the skin, if I didn't mention that, as well as dry skin. And they're also dealing with the low energy and potentially the weight gain. So if this sounds anything like you and maybe even have some higher cholesterol, these are all potential symptoms. You don't have to have all of them, but what happens is many people, many more women than men as well, but men do have hypothyroidism. It leads them to feeling like they're down on life. They don't have as much energy in body or brain. They have a sluggish metabolism, and they just don't have a lot of vitality. So this is not normal. And I would like to tell people, listen, this is common, but it's not normal. So we need to help you. That's the bottom line. These people need help just like anyone else needs help. And what they don't need is a pharmaceutical-based drug that's giving them the synthetic form of T4. So your thyroid essentially has T4 and T3. The T4 is what comes first, the iodine-based molecules. If your body doesn't have enough, it's going to make more thyroid-stimulating hormone, and then we're going to hope to convert T4 to T3. This is obviously an oversimplified version of that, and T3 being more of the activated thyroid, like the thyroid that you can actually use. Well, the problem is most thyroid medications are simply T4, and then you're hoping that it actually converts. But the problem is that, for the most part, people are missing the actual nutrients that help it to convert. And at the same time, they have higher levels of estrogen, which hurts their levels of nutrients. And they also have toxicities, which depletes their levels of glutathione, which also enables them to be able to have less thyroid antibodies and make more thyroid hormone. So, this is extremely important. So the first thing is I like to tell people is, listen, if you have any of these symptoms, okay, run a lab test with your doctor, run a lab test with Equilibrium Nutrition, run it with whoever you'd like, but find out these 4 numbers: TSH, free T4, free T3, and TPO antibodies. And if your doctor says you only need to run TSH, then it's just not the right person for you. That's it. Again, they can be absolutely brilliant, but it's not the right person. It's just not. Because what if T4 looks pretty good, but T3 is low? Well, now you know there's a conversion issue from T4 to T3, and that's why you have low thyroid. Or you don't have a conversion issue to T3, but what happens is your usable T3 becomes reverse T3, which is essentially unusable. And that can happen from heavy metals, stress, toxicity, viruses, right? So we look at that and say, oh, okay, well, now we understand, right? Higher levels of cortisol can lead to a conversion from active T3 to reverse T3. So we need to know this, right? And our doctors need to know this, and our endocrinologists need to know this, or simply put, this is what I tell people all the time. You should have a medical doctor, and you should also have your integrative health practitioner, your naturopathic doctor, your functional medicine doctor, whoever can help you with these particular things. But it's good to have both, right? You don't have to see one person for everything. Certainly, you should not come to me as your primary care physician. It's not what I do. I am not going to diagnose you with disease. That's not within my realm and scope of practice. But what I could share with someone is this. Listen, if you are someone that, especially if you ended up with thyroid-based issues as a teenager or so, was it due to taking birth control? Was it due to you were on swim team and you swim in a pool 3, 4, 5 days a week and you were exposed to higher levels of chlorine, which really depleted your levels of iodine? Well, that's a possibility. Has your doctor ever asked you that, right? Or what if you're on specific medications that actually lower your ability to produce or absorb thyroid-based hormones? And again, these are blood thinners, right? So if you're on warfarin or heparin, these are blood thinners that have issues with this. Insulin, beta blockers, lithium for mood-based disorders as well, even metformin, which a lot of people are being prescribed nowadays. There are more. But this is really, really important because, again, if you've never been told this, then you may not know that throws off your thyroid. So extremely important there. But I want to go over some of the most important ones first on today's show, and then I'll go over some of the more rare or obscure ones that you should still know, but we need to master the foundation. It's always about the foundation before you build upon that, right? So if you build a house and you didn't actually lay the concrete or whatever the foundation is made out of, well, that house isn't going to be very sturdy. And so that is why sometimes we look for the silver bullet with the more rare-based things when typically it's a foundational-based issue. So along with testing your thyroid, I love people to be able to actually look at their iron levels. So you can run your what's called ferritin levels, and you can run your total iron binding capacity. Now there's others like transferritin, etc. But those are the best ones to run to also see if you may have some type of anemia. Because if there's a lack of iron or ferritin, it's very difficult to get those iodine molecules to actually turn into T4, right? So the first part of thyroid-based hormones. So we need that, right? We need iron. So if you are someone, let's just say you're on a plant-based diet and you're not following foods that are not higher in iron, well, it could lead you to becoming anemic, at least at a functional-based level. Now, again, are you diagnosed with anemia? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're in the lower 15% or so of iron, it might be worth adding in a food-based iron into your diet, or at least eating foods of any type that you would like that are higher in iron. Okay, really, really important. But it's also important for absorption. So let's go over that one. What do we need in order to absorb more T4? What do we need to absorb more iron? Well, one of those things that almost no one ever talks about, but it's one of the simplest vitamins in the world that can do so much in your body, especially since humans are one of the only creatures not to endogenously make it on our own, and that's vitamin C. Good old vitamin C. Using something like alkalizing vitamin C, 1 scoop in the morning, or using a full spectrum vitamin C, which is more food-based one. Simple, right? But we need it. We don't need 10, 15, 30 grams a day. Maybe in the short term, some people do. Very rarely, but maybe. But most people, a gram a day, 2 grams a day, perfect, right? We don't need a mega dose, but we need some. And in the case of thyroid, we absolutely need those particular vitamins. Then, one I want to mention is this. There's a lot of people with Hashimoto's, a lot of people with autoimmune-based disorders, and they've never looked into their copper to zinc ratio. And I chatted about copper before. I didn't make as big a deal about autoimmune-based issues, but it is a factor. And that show, let me see if I can just find it for you right now. That was episode 1462. So if you'd like to listen to that show on copper toxicity, if you're dealing with allergies or asthma or child has learning-based disabilities or you have skin rashes or low energy or mood swings, check out that show. I mean, it really might be worth your while, especially if you're someone dealing or know someone dealing with those particular symptoms. But one of the reasons why I mention that is that if you are low in zinc, let's say you're taking an acid blocker, right? We just talked about that on a previous show. If you're taking an acid blocker, you may not be absorbing your zinc. Or if you're on a vegan-based diet, and again, you're not watching your nutrition to make sure you're getting enough zinc, well, what happens is you end up with depleted zinc from, again, a functional level, and you can end up with higher levels of copper. You can find that out on a minerals and metals-based test. Really important one to test those zinc to copper ratios. Why does that matter? Well, a couple reasons. One, lower levels of zinc absolutely depresses the immune system, which means it can actually shift in some cases to more of an autoimmune problem. Okay, that's an issue for many, many people with skin issues, potentially with Hashimoto's, etc. So I like to look at that, but also if we don't have enough zinc, we cannot convert T4 to activated T3. That matters. That matters, right? Because now, if we look at T3 is about 70% of the active thyroid hormone, well, we're not able to use that, which means now we have lower metabolism, and we have all those symptoms again of the dry skin, thinning hair, thinning eyebrows. We've got the poor circulation, the cold hands and the feet, feeling slow, feeling sluggish, brain fog, maybe even higher cholesterol, etc. So important to look at that. And then I've mentioned selenium before, right? You're not going to have good, healthy thyroid levels without iodine and selenium. There's no doubt about it. But what you may not have known about selenium, what else selenium does in the body. So what I want to share with you is this, is because selenium, being this very powerful trace mineral, actually activates specific enzymes, and these are called deiodinases. You know it's an enzyme when you hear that word ACE at the end. What this it allows it to do is actually to cleave off those iodine molecules and actually convert now, or one, to T3. So this is how we get that activated form of T3. It's absolutely crucial. The other thing that it does, again, I talked about this before, but it helps to improve and balance the immune system. So this is obviously, in my opinion, highly beneficial for people dealing with a autoimmune-based issue. One other big thing that I like to talk about is that selenium is used in the second phase of liver detoxification. So when we look at that level, the phase 1 and phase 2. And again, if you want to go deep on your knowledge on detoxification and why it's so important, you can get a free course at equilibriumnutrition.com/detox-course. That is free for a limited time. So check it out over at equilibriumnutrition.com/detox-course. And you'll get to see all the charts, how this works, and why, anybody that's skeptical, well, this will show you the science behind it and really why it's one of the most important things out there. Because, well, here's a big one. So selenium is going to actually be one of the antioxidants, or one of the I should say minerals, nutrients needed to activate glutathione peroxidase, which actually helps the thyroid. It acts as a protective mechanism to stave off excess hydrogen peroxide in the body, which would damage the thyroid. So selenium is a crucial one. We look at 200 micrograms a day being very, very vital for the body. Some women may need more. We found in the research as well that a lot of women start to go lower thyroid after pregnancy. And much of the selenium could be depleted. And that is why we start to see that hypothyroidism as well. So that's not going to help with overall metabolism. It's not going to help with overall mood. And that's, of course, why we want to make sure that we're getting a good activated multivitamin or daily nutritional support, something for women, and potentially some additional minerals and vitamins found in a product like the daily thyroid support. But these things, they can't be overlooked, because remember, your body runs on nutrition. And it doesn't just run on food-based substances, it runs on the micronutrients. So it actually runs on all of the amino acids, it runs on the enzymes, it runs on the glycogen or the glucose, the fatty acids, and it runs on vitamins, minerals, etc. So we can never overlook that. And one more thing I want to share with you specifically on selenium is that selenium also has to be stronger than copper in order to keep the immune system balanced. So if you have low zinc and you have low selenium and you have higher levels of copper, again, it's a recipe for disaster with the immune system in both body and mind. So that's something I haven't talked a lot about before, and I would love to just make sure you make sure that that's not an issue with you specifically, because it's so easy to overcome. Like, that's the thing. It's so easy to overcome with some additional zinc in the diet or supplementation and selenium in the diet or supplementation. Believe it or not, 2 Brazil nuts a day will boost your selenium levels. So, I mean, these things can be looked at. Pumpkin seeds for zinc. So, don't overlook this, but just make sure that it's being absorbed and that it is, of course, part of your overall healthy diet and nutrition plan. Although, in my opinion, if you're dealing with lower thyroid right now, we always want to find the root cause. We don't want to start necessarily just doing things to do them if we don't know that's what you're suffering from specifically. Okay, one more part is chatting about this. So as we're converting T4 to T3, this is not going to go perfectly if the liver is congested. And by that, I mean this: blocked up bile ducts, or it's already dealing with a lot of toxicity in the body. If your body is dealing with fluorides and chlorine and heavy metals like mercury or aluminum or bromine, all of these things will affect the thyroid. It will affect the immune system, and it's going to affect the liver. So if any of this is off, conversion from T4 to T3 is going to be difficult, which is why, as part of our protocol, we're always going back to foundation. So again, I'm going to do a follow-up with some more rare things that I'm going to chat about, more about like the drugs that affect this, with GI disorders that affect thyroid, with EMS. I'll talk more about that, okay? But what I want to share with you is this: the best way to really begin to overcome low thyroid and high thyroid — hyperthyroidism is a real thing, Graves is a real thing, okay? Often induced by actually thyroid medication, believe it or not, too much. But then we want to look at hypothyroidism, low thyroid, and potentially even Hashimoto's. Now again, we're not looking to cure disease, treat disease in our practice. What we do is we work on the underlying root cause imbalances. So I want to share with you exactly what we do. And you don't have to do it our way. You don't even have to follow our protocols. But I want you to know. And when you know, then you can follow it with a practitioner you trust that you will be under the guidance of. And that's totally fine as well. So here's exactly what we do. If someone's dealing with low thyroid, I want to give you the labs that I recommend running. And I'm going to put them in order of importance for someone with low thyroid and the symptoms that I spoke about. Again, those symptoms, one more time, are sometimes it's digestive issues, but not as much. It's just sluggishness. There can actually be some constipation with this. And it is dry skin. It's dry thinning here of the hair on the top of the head for both men and women. It's thinning of the eyebrows. It is drying of the skin. It is the brain fog. It's the sluggishness. It's the fatigue. It is sometimes high cholesterol related. And it's also dealing with the overall metabolism of the body. More likely to gain weight, harder to take the weight off, okay? So that's what we're looking at in terms of the typical. There are more, but those are the typical low thyroid-based symptoms. So here's what we do. We say, okay, first, most important test, stress, mood, and metabolism. That's our thyroid adrenal hormone test. So it's going to look at your levels of estrogen and progesterone, see if they're in proper ratio. It's going to look at your DHEA and your testosterone. That's going to look at your overall balance of immune system. Believe it or not, DHEA is a great sign of your immune system, how well it's functioning. Low DHEA, probably not the best functioning immune system, probably from chronic-based stress over the years. What does that do? That lowers your immune system, okay? Or it imbalances it in terms of autoimmune-based issues. Next up, what we have is cortisol. We want to look at your total cortisol production for the day, which is why 1 a.m. cortisol production or test for blood work is not enough. What's your total cortisol output for the day? Is it low in the morning, high at night? Well, that's a sign of a dysfunctional diurnal rhythm. We want to fix that. You should have higher cortisol in the morning and low at night so that you wake up with energy, no brain fog, no grogginess, and you go to bed and sleep well, right? That's important. But also higher levels of cortisol will also hurt your conversion of thyroid hormone. So super important, and that's why it should be on your thyroid test. Next up, you want to look at vitamin D. If your vitamin D levels are low, you can assume your immune system is going to be dysfunctional. Your metabolism is going to be lowered, as well as 298 other processes in the body. So vitamin D is kind of important. And I'll also talk about this. One more time, test your TSH, okay? Your TSH is important. If you ran it with your doctor before, and you're kind of like, oh, well, let me see what it was last time. Here's the thing. It should be between 0.5 and 2. The range is not 0.5 to 5, okay? That just means you're not within a disease range. We want you optimal. Your range should be 0.5 to 2, okay? Starts to get above 2, well, we're starting to see a slowing of that thyroid. Okay, below 0.5, well, now we're moving towards hyperthyroidism. All right, after that, we look at free T4, we look at free T3. Why? We want to actually see if T3 is low, but T4 is good, what's going on with the conversion? We know how to help that conversion. We know how to fix that, okay? And then we want to look at TPO antibodies. Other elevated levels of antibodies, the range is from, well, basically 0 to 150, more than 150, there's a problem. But we don't like it above 50 to 75 in our practice. It really shows that there's at least some autoimmune-based process in the body, even if you're not ready for the diagnosis of Hashimoto's, which again, I've seen many people move from Hashimoto's to no more Hashimoto's. And again, we're not talking about treating or curing disease. What we're talking about is looking at these underlying toxicities. And then, of course, the last part of this test is looking at your insulin and your hemoglobin A1C in terms of blood sugar, because dysregulated blood sugar means dysregulated hormones. All right. So we run that test. That's the most important. The second most important is going to be the Candida metabolic and vitamins test. That's our organic acids test to look at your B vitamin levels, right? Super important in terms of your thyroid. For example, not low levels of B6. That's the lowest vitamin we typically see with people. Lower levels of B6, poor conversion, okay? So we look at the organic acids test, also called the Candida metabolic and vitamins-based test. That will also assess gut function. Poor gut function, more than likely imbalanced immune system. The third one is going to be the minerals and metals test. This is the hair tissue mineral analysis that looks at your levels of zinc to copper, also looks at your levels of selenium, levels of stress in the body, and heavy metals like aluminum, mercury, etc. So I'm a huge fan of those three. If you wanted to add on others, you could do the food sensitivity test, especially showing potential sensitivities, delayed reactions to gluten, potentially eggs, and dairy. There are 94 others on this test. That's a very, very important one. And then if you wanted to do all big five, the last one on that is the omega-3. So those are the labs in the order that I would recommend, so you can find out what's best for you, or you can run all five or just the first three. So after running those, then we move into our 21-day functional medicine detox. And again, you can find that at equilibriumnutrition.com. And if you don't want to use that one, that's okay. Find one that's comparable and under the guidance of a functional medicine doctor that's done particular programs like this for 21 days. Because we want to eliminate as much toxicity as we can from the body. If we find heavy metals, well, then we're going to go right into a heavy metal-based detox. From there, we're going to develop a personalized program based on those lab results. So it's probably going to include something like the daily thyroid support. It may or may not include a glandular. It will include the daily nutritional support, maybe an omega-3. We'll customize it based on the person, and that's really how we begin to rebalance the body. It might be an activated B complex for sure in there. So this is exactly what we do in our practice, and I really wanted to demystify that for you. So it's basically lab testing, so we don't guess, we test, we figure out exactly what the deficiencies are and the toxicities are, and then what we do is we clean that body, we get it ready by doing a functional medicine-based detox, ideally the 21-day, and then what we do is we actually get into that personalized wellness protocol where we develop a plan based on your specific deficiencies and toxicities. That is how functional medicine should be done properly. This is actually custom tailoring something to the individual. And I hope that this was helpful today. I'm happy to answer questions. Always feel free to comment over on Instagram. my account is just Stephen Cabral. Of course, you can ask questions at cabralsupportgroup.com, our free Facebook group, and I will be doing a follow-up on this as well. For previous podcasts on thyroid, head on over to stephencabral.com/podcasts. And what you can do is you can actually scroll through the images at the top. And you'll find I did a whole series on thyroid healing solutions. And if you click on that, you will see all my previous shows on the thyroid. So I would love you to go back, tune into those, and really just develop your knowledge base for your thyroid healing. Or remember, there's always an answer. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I appreciate you. As always, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.